And I would like to bring forward Father Wilfredo Contreras from San Isidro Catholic Church to talk to us about
Good evening, Full Justice. In 2013, we identified a serious problem in our communities. Too many of our children were arrested for minor offenses, such as crossing through an orange grove on their way home from school or getting in a shoving match at school. These children ended up branded for life with criminal records. So we decided to do something about this problem. We fought to ensure that all children who commit first-time misdemeanors would get access to a pre-arrest diversion program called civil citation. Civil citations ensure people face sanctions for misbehaviors. For example, children now have to do community service hours, pay restitution. They might be sent to anger management or drug treatment, among other things. However, they don't get branded for life with a criminal record. 95%, yeah, that's something to be applauding about. No more criminal records. Yeah. 95% of the children who got a civil citation never got in trouble again. So going into our... So going into our 2021 Nehemiah action, at the assembly at that time, only 50% of eligible kids were getting civil citations. But at our 2021 Nehemiah action, State Attorney Mr. Harold Pryor committed to do a second screening in order to ensure that all eligible children get access to a civil citation. That screening process began in August of last year. Since the screening started, we have seen the number of children getting civil citations increase. Now, 87% of eligible children are getting civil citations. They are getting a second chance, yeah. Awesome. State Attorney Mr. Harold Pryor, by your following through on your commitment and getting kids into civil citations, you are transforming this community. Because of your work, last year alone, 1,011 children were saved from lifetime criminal records. Those 1,011 children will not have an arrest record hanging over their heads when they apply for college, when they apply for jobs, when they try to enter the military, obtain safe housing, or even try to adopt children. These children's lives could have been derailed over a simple minor mistake. Instead, now they have a chance to succeed. And yet, we still have some work to do in the future, specifically getting civil citations for domestic disturbances, which would get our county numbers up to 95% civil citations. But for today, we want to celebrate this important progress. Just like Esther from Hebrew Bible, we believe, Mr. Harold Pryor, you were placed here in Broward County for this moment, and we want to acknowledge your work. Thank you. Thank you, brother. So now let's listen to these testimonies related to criminal justice issues. Beginning with Deanne Connolly Graham and Esperanza Puerta, she will deliver her testimony en español and then in English. Esperanza Puerta dará su testimonio primero en español y luego en inglés. Deanne?
Thank you. Just to clarify, it'll only be in English. I don't speak Spanish. A little over 25 years ago, I got into a minor traffic accident And when I showed my license to the policeman, he advised me that my license was suspended. I had had a traffic infraction about a year before that I had neglected to pay and had never received a notice that my license had been suspended because of not paying that ticket. I was handcuffed and arrested because of driving with a suspended license. At that time, I had a 13-year-old son and a 5-year-old son at home. Luckily, I was able to call a friend to go and stay with them, as I did have to spend a night in jail and go to court the next day. It was a horrific experience, needless to say, embarrassing, humiliating, and very expensive. The following day in court, I had a lot more money to pay than the original infraction. And I had an arrest record because of neglecting to pay a traffic ticket.
Buenas noches, World Justice. Mi nombre es Esperanza Puerta y soy parroquiana de San Isidro Catholic Church. Una mañana iba a trabajar alrededor de las 5 de la mañana y la policía me detuvo. Me informaron que me detenían porque tenía la luz de la placa de la matrícula apagada. Mi visa había expirado y por esa razón mi licencia ya no era válida para manejar en la Florida. Me dieron un aviso de comparecencia y tuve que ir a la corte un día específico y pagar una multa de $500. A pesar de que no me llevaron a la cárcel, todavía tengo un registro de arresto por esta razón. Mientras estaba en la corte, descubrí que si la policía me hubiese arrestado en lugar de darme un aviso de comparecer, podría haber sido deportada. Todo el tiempo que estuve en la corte fue muy agobiante para mí. Tenía tanto miedo que me deportaran solo por tratar de ir a trabajar. Tuve suerte, pero mucha gente no tiene tanta suerte. I was going to work early one morning around 5 a.m. I was pulled over by the police. They said I was pulled over because the light on my license plate was out. My visa has expired. That meant I no longer have a valid driver license. I was given a notice to appeal. I had to go to court on a specific day and pay $500 fine. Even though I wasn't taken to jail, I still have an arrest record. While I was at court, I found out that if the police had arrested me instead of giving me a notice to appeal, I could have been deported. The whole time I was at the court, I was overwhelmed. I was so afraid that I would be deported just for trying to go to work. I got lucky, but a lot of people are not that lucky. Thank you.
So unfortunately, stories like Deanne and Esperanza are all too common. In 2020, in Broward County, more than 14,000 adults were arrested and charged with a misdemeanor. People of color, which include Afro-Americans, brown people, and Hispanics, were twice as likely to be arrested for a misdemeanor. In some cases, as witnessed by Esperanza, those arrested who were undocumented, once processed through the system and ran through the ICE database, would later be deported, disrupting the lives of their families, many of whom have children. We're not talking about violent crimes here. We're talking about littering, disorderly conduct, trespassing, possession of small amounts of marijuana, two people getting into a fight where no one gets hurt, And one of the most common ones, driving offenses. Arresting people for these minor offenses is looking for justice. There are now over 187,000 people with suspended licenses in Broward County. Amazing. And we know that 77% of these license suspensions in our county are given for unpaid fees and fines. That is more than 3/4 of the suspensions. Often, these fees and fines go unpaid because the license holder, guess what, cannot afford to pay them. So what happens then, if you ever get arrested, even for a misdemeanor, it adds even more to the cost that people couldn't pay in the first place. For your first offense of driving on a suspended license, you might have to pay as much as $1,600. Outrageous. Outrageous. Criminalizing poverty, in effect, is looking for justice in all the wrong places. See, what many people don't know is that our court system is entirely funded by these costs. While fines are intended to be a punishment, fees are simply assessed as revenue. Many unrelated trust funds, such as the state radio program, are funded through these fees. Even a private nonprofit called Crime Stoppers funds its budget with fees from people who are arrested. These sanctions may be needed for serious criminals who commit violent offenses, but tens of thousands of people in our county are getting arrested because they can't afford to pay fines or because their paperwork is not in order. See, the court system is set up in such a way that its budget is fully funded when more and more people are arrested. And you know what? That's just wrong. We do not believe that people should be criminalized because they are poor. Being poor is not a crime. Since when has it ever become a crime to be poor? The Broward County Commission has been looking for a solution in the right place. In 2018, the county started a pre-arrest diversion program that gives people consequences without branding them for life with a criminal record. Our county already has a pre-arrest diversion program that gives people consequences without branding them for life. That is called our Adult Civil Citation Program. Those who qualify for a civil citation often must do community service hours or take classes. But, most importantly, they don't end up with an arrest record that prevents them from getting jobs, obtain housing, or puts them at risk for deportation, as it almost happened to Esperanza. In 2020, 14,000 adults were arrested for misdemeanors in Broward. Despite Broward County having a civil citation program for adults, last year, only 87 people got a civil citation. 87 people of 14,000. That's not even 1% of the cases. And driving offenses, which make up 1/3 of misdemeanors, are not even eligible. Our local officials have the power to stop arresting people for these minor offenses, like driving a license that had been suspended for clerical error. We refuse to support a system that criminalizes people for being poor. This needs to change, and that's why we are here together. Because together we stand bold,